Hi. I'm Amelie.
Hi, Amelie.
I don't know, like we usually Sarah's usually the one introducing all of us and like having us go around, and so I'm a little bit lost, I'll be honest.
Okay, well, welcome everybody to our second episode of the OOC. Second live one. This is live for patrons. We will be uploading it later. Well, if you're not a patron, you will see this later. So yeah. Today we have myself, Tanya, to the right of me, and then for me, and then at the bottom we got Amelie.
Yay!
So yay! Fun times. I also have the wonderful water burger.
Today we are talking about, I guess mostly we're going to talk about gender as it relates to D&D.
Well, like LGBTQ and oppressed communities as it relates to D&D is how I understood it, and like
because we were starting with a brief history of women in gaming.
Got you.
And then we were going to kind of jump off that. By the way, hi everybody. I'm actually on vacation, so this is me in my vacation house. The lighting is even more terrible than it is in my actual house.
Don't believe her.
There's a porch out there. You can almost see it. Okay. Let's see. I guess I'll kick off with history stuff since that's my bailiwick.
I was about to say, that's what you do.
That's what I do. Did someone say history?
It's one of the reasons we keep you around.
Well, actually,
it's the only reason. That and I make funny faces. Okay, so I guess I'd like to kick off with sort of this the term gamer, right? So when I was first coming up in the gamer world in the 90s, right, there was you were a gamer or you were a gamer girl, right? It's like that. A lawyer and a lady lawyer.
It reminds me of like in sports in school where like if you were the Rams, you'd have the Rams and the Lady Rams.
Yeah. So yeah, there was gamers and gamer girls. But that actually before tabletop gaming became a thing and then followed by video gaming, a gamer was actually just a term for hunter, right? So it completely changed course because of tabletop gaming and then video games. One of the very first tabletop games that was made for public consumption was actually produced by H.G. Wells. It's called Little Wars, and it came out in 1913. And H.G. Wells specifically said that, like other war games, Little Wars was a game for boys and that rare intelligent breed of girl. So, to be clear, H.G. Wells was considered extremely progressive for his time, right? Right. So
we love to see it.
It's always fun. So that was considered the fact that he thought that girls could play a war game at all and mention them at all in the playbook was considered mind-blowing at the time, right? So
that fact is mind-blowing.
That fact is mind-blowing. Is everybody's mind blown? All right. Well, then I guess there's no more. If everybody's mind's blown, I guess we're done.
Okay, that was it, guys.
Good night.
Gosh.
So this idea that is for boys really was baked in to this. So by the time Gary Gygax comes around with D&D, where he is literally taking the tabletop battlefield game and just putting a role-playing layer on top of it. And D&D very much was still largely mechanics very little role playing. You were basically choosing character types, kind of like you would with like Warhammer, something like that, right? And then AD&D gets more into role playing. And at that time, a very small percentage of tabletop gamers were women, but they were there. But the game was never marketed to them. And even Gary Gygax was like, I would make the game for women if women would play. So there was this whole, right? There was this whole problem with, because they're not playing, we assume they don't want to play. So we're not going to market towards them or write for them or do art for them. We're going to, continue to push this masculine idea. Even though there were actually women on the design team for D&D, not even like we got more for AD&D. So like the women have been there, but they've been sort of invisible. And it's really not until I think really the 90s that you start to see a far more significant percentage of women and femme people playing D&D. And so that's kind of where we're going to now jump off the rest of our conversation. We have this history of what came before, and sort of the levee breaking moment in tabletop history. And today now, of course, we don't just have D&D, we have a plethora of tabletop RPGs, and many of them are far more progressive. As progressive as H.G. Wells was in 1913.
And, I hope that we get to a point where our views seem, like, well, duh. Like, why,
right?
or even as, like, backwards as Wells's.
Right.
I hope that day comes.
I do too. I hope that we're not looking at this as progressive and more like, well, duh. So I guess the first question for everybody, and I'll answer it also, would be then, how did each of us find RPGs? How did we come to RPGs?
Okay, I'll go first since I am on the closest to the right. So I mean, I just played video games as a kid. Really what started all of like getting into what led to D&D was me playing a lot of video games and then starting my job, and one of my coworkers was like, "Hey, you like video games, you should do D&D." And I was like, "Okay." And then he's like, "So we're gonna play D&D." And I was like, "That's fine, sure." And then we played that, and he then started telling me about all the other cool stuff, and then he told me about the Adventure Zone, and then it just went downhill from there, or uphill, whichever way you look at it.
Whichever way is the good way.
Yeah. Well, and then I made my first character for Pathfinder. His name was Tulip. I made a dude. We had no girl, like no one was playing a girl in our group. And I was the only girl at the time before I came out as non-binary. And I was like, I'm gonna play a gay tiefling, and that's what I'm gonna do.
And we're gonna loop back to that in a bit.
That's what I did.
All right, Emily, how about you?
Well, I'm going to like give a little bit more introduction to like what my identity is first. So I am agender, which I am, which means that I do not have a gender. And mostly because I just think gender's stupid. And like everything surrounding this concept is ridiculous. And for binary gender people, like I understand it's important. And for me, it's just really not. And so then, however, I did not realize this until a couple of years ago. I did not come to this conclusion and this realization. And so sometimes when I talk about myself in the past, I will talk about myself as a girl or as a woman. And that's because that's who I perceived myself as at that time. So it's not to like try and like make anybody confused. It's not to say that, yes, you can call me she, her, you can call me a woman. Nope, that's not true. My pronouns are they, them. I am still a gender. My past is my past, and I get to present it the way I want to. And so thank you for letting me do that real quick. But I grew up, I was the eldest, and my dad is a giant nerd. Like everything that you think of, like for a stereotypical D&D Lord of the Rings fan, goes to the Renaissance Festival every year, like, and he'd been doing it for decades, and he had no idea what to do with a baby girl. He was like, baby girl, I don't know, and I'm kind of like putting that on him, but that's the perception that I have of him. And so he would try and get me, he basically just raised me as a boy because he didn't know what else to do. So I didn't really get a gendered experience growing up because he had no idea what to do with bows and everything. So I just was raised to as if the same way that he would raise a boy that was born to him, and in the same way that he raised my brothers. But so he introduced us to AD&D late 90s ish. Only problem was I did not get along with my brothers very well, and so I didn't play with them well, and so I didn't. So I knew that I enjoyed the acting parts of D&D and the getting into character parts and the exploration parts of D&D. But I was kind of just told, I kind of got the impression that, no, this is for boys from places other than my family. Like everyone else taught me that, oh, this is a boys' game. And so I went and I did all the stuff that I was told I was supposed to enjoy. And it wasn't until about 5 years ago I got into D&D because I was with a group of women in San Antonio, and one of them was like, I really want to start a D&D group all for women. And so I did that, and I made my very first 5e character. And so I have a unique experience in that the majority of my DMs, and I brought this up last time, last live, but the majority of my GMs have all been women.
Which is definitely, definitely unusual. Yeah. Okay, so I guess, huh?
I was gonna say, I wanted to just preface that with my whole thing. I am 20 years old, so there's also that aspect of it. But, like, my dad played D&D, too. I mean, we have all of his D&D 3rd editions, I think. We have all of his books from that and stuff, and I was just like, nah. Now we have a shit ton of 5th edition ones that I bought.
I went through a bunch of my dad's old AD&D stuff.
So my dad's books are so old that, like, he has stickers on the inside of them that have his name on them and shit. And then one of them says, like, if you steal this book, I will find you kind of thing. It's really funny because, yeah,
we've gotten rid of so many books. We got rid of a lot of Palladium, though.
I found a bunch of his old maps, like town maps and dungeon maps and stuff. Like that was really cool.
Didn't we used to have a giant map of Faerun?
Yeah,
I found all of my dad's old characters, and he never really named them, so he would just put a dash. So he has like -1, -2, -3. Like he has like 3 of them. We found.
Oh, no, I love naming things. Everything gets named. I'm a huge namer. I said namer. Not gamer. I mean, I'm also a huge gamer, but also a huge gamer.
But you're a girl gamer.
I am. I'm a gamer. I'm a girl gamer.
You're a gamer that happens to be a girl.
So I guess I'll back up a little and talk about my upbringing. I am also the oldest.
Same.
And yeah, and
what
the
is
joke
this?
in my family, I know, right? And the joke in my family is that I'm my mom's daughter and my dad's son. And that's been a long running joke. So growing up, my toys were primarily Star Wars, Transformers, and Hot Wheels. I mean, I had some other things, like I had the fashion plates and stuff like that, but the toys I played most with, those were the big three. I had huge collections of all three. Star Wars was my favorite movies. I was one when A New Hope came out. So, and I grew up, I did dance and I played soccer for both of them for a very big chunk of my life. So I had that sort of, I guess, agendered upbringing, but in the 70s, there was no pink aisle, blue aisle. Like there was generally like a concept of like girl things and boy things, but even like the clothes were a little like gender ambiguous a lot of the times. There was a lot of like,
I'm gonna blame Reagan.
Yeah, well, it's terry cloth shorts, and no matter what, you had like little rainbows like on the side. It was just the thing, like whatever. But unlike Amelie, who never really felt like any of the typically assigned genders fit, I've always felt very comfortable calling myself female, a girl or a woman, right? I came to D&D in the mid 90s, so 90. It was 94 or 95. I think it was 95. And I was introduced to it by a guy, but the guy was not my boyfriend. I just want that to be clear. And it was sort of a thing where I was hanging out with him, and he was like, "Hey, my friends and I have this game. You want to come?" And I ended up, our gaming group was like 10 people total, and there were two girls. And my very first character, as discussed before, is the character I'm playing now, but was female. And I've played only like, I think 2 or 3 male characters the whole time that I've played tabletop role-playing games, including Haven's Rest. That's including Haven's Rest, because I don't typically feel comfortable playing characters that aren't female, because that's how strongly I identify with that gender. But I don't play the sexy sorceress or, those kind of whatever stereotypical characters. I'm usually a fighter. It's just
and Jack is my very first fighter.
Yeah.
Jack is my very first fighter. I usually play magic. Ursa is my Dragonborn rogue, but I did end up like making her an arcane trickster. So like I keep having magic users.
I just feel so uncomfortable with magic. I know that's weird. It's so weird, but I'm like, just like me in real life, I'm like, the problem can be approached head on. And I always feel like magic is far more, right? Like I have a cleavy thing, or I have a beat you on the head thing, and either one is going to solve the problem.
Yeah.
So I guess that covers kind of all of our.
Yeah. My shitty introduction to my history, but yeah.
Oh, okay.
I should have let you guys go first.
Yeah, I kind of like this ongoing like popcorn, this kind of like popcorn style of like, oh, you brought that up. I want to talk about this. Please talk about that. Yeah.
Well, so when you said like male characters, I just went on D&D Beyond because that's where I have all my characters on, and I have
Mine are in a literal 3-ring binder.
I have 3 men. One of them I don't play because it's alphas. Because I made alphas on this and gave my brother the login information. The other one is Melius, which is the satyr that I've never played yet. And then the other one is a Goliath character named Parok that I originally made for our one-shot for Caden's birthday. The Goliath bard that I said just breaks all his instruments, that was the other one.
I love that concept.
Yeah.
They ended up playing something different, which was equally as great.
I ended up
my
brother and I played
all of the characters that I've played have always been women. That is in part because I do still feel like a bit of a beginner at D&D. And so, like, a lot of my creation is still like, okay, I'm going to build it out of the book a little bit. And then once I get my basis out of the book, then I'm going to get to, like, play around with it. And I'm just starting to, like, do something else with that. Like, be like, this is how I want to... this is how I want to do this, and let me figure out how the rules will apply. And that's actually what I ended up doing with Jack. But so my 2 biggest characters from before Yas are Ursa, who's a Dragonborn rogue, and Alethra, who is a Water Genasi cleric. Both use she, her, and Ursa is technically a woman, but, like, we had realized really early on, Dragonborns are not mammals. And so, like, I completely, like, I just took everything off of, like, what to expect of, like, gender and that sort of thing off of her entirely. And so, like, I'm just, like, trying to word this correctly. Basically, yes, she uses she, her, but, like, that's because humans do.
Right.
It's like going with
cultural, the norm. It's a cultural, translation. Right. So I guess that brings us in sort of the next umbrella part of our conversation, was basically in what ways has D&D either helped you realize something about your identity, either gender-wise, sexual orientation-wise, like the whole gambit. What has D&D, like, either has it made you realize something or has it reaffirmed something?
I just want to point out that there is a joke in the trans community, especially those that play D&D, that we figure out our gender identity a lot of times through making a character of another gender. So it is a pretty common, it's a common enough experience that there's a bit of an in-joke among.
Well, and I know we don't typically speak for other people when they're not here, but since Sarah did mention it in the OOC, Sarah brings up that she discovered that, basically her sexuality through playing. So I think it's definitely probably a very common thing in many people. I mean, it's kind of the point of taking on different roles. I have to say, and I won't say who it is, respecting their privacy, but I play another game, and a player in that game started the campaign with a non-binary character because they were trying to figure out if they were non-binary themselves. And just 2 weeks ago, finally announced that, yes, they were, sorry, my throat is, like, killing me. That they will now would like to be referred to as they, them. And so that came through role-playing it and feeling like, is it comfortable? Does this feel right?
I will say that playing D&D, dude, I'm not straight. I think almost all of my characters are gay, except for my 12-year-old and my Goliath bard. Because my first character, I made him the flamboyant, gay tulip. I played him at Sherwood too this past year. Had a lot of fun. And then the second character I made was a Genasi monk. And then later on, I was like thinking about it because one of my other friends in the game, his character was falling for like one of the barmaids, and I was like, oh, I never even thought about like who Teak would go for if like they saw anybody. So then I ended up making her. I was like, you know what? She just likes girls too. So I made her a lesbian. I was like, you know what? Whatever. That's how she goes. And then that's really for like main games that I played. And then I made a Goliath fighter cleric for one of my other friends' games because she was like, we need somebody to heal people. And I was like, okay, I'll be a tank that heals. And then I made her gay as well.
Like Caden's Luxodon cleric.
Oh. Yeah.
It's the only cleric we send in first.
My first character, so Ursa, I didn't come up with a sexuality for her, and like after playing her for a while, just realizing her interaction with humanoids and that sort of thing, I was like, she's ace. Like it was a realization to me. She's asexual. She has no attraction to humanoids or anything like that. Also, one of her biggest flaws is that like she is because she came from like higher up ranks in her community, she's kind of racist. I'm working on that for her. She's a teenage like little demon child. She's getting better. She's growing up. But yeah, when I realized that, you know, we were interacting with characters of various genders, and she wasn't experiencing any sort of attraction to these humanoids, I'm like, oh, okay, so she's ace, and that's really cool to know. I'm not. I don't identify that way, but being part of the queer community I'm just going to point this out to everyone listening. Yes, the ace spectrum absolutely is part of the queer community. No gatekeeping. And so so she is queer in that way. And then Alethra is the exact opposite. She'll go after anyone that moves and consents. So she's pan, but also like she's a water genasi, and so yes, she uses she her, but like her concept of gender is just kind of meh, whatever.
Fluid.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh
yeah.
I will piggyback on the whole thing of ace because I'm ace, and I do feel 100% most of my characters, since I am ace. Most of my characters are on that like ace spectrum as well, just because it's hard for me to do stuff like that. So when I'm playing characters, I'm like, I don't know how to do this. Every time.
I think that's kind of like one reason why I don't tend to play guy characters, because it feels like such an awkward fit, and like ultimately I'd end up making fun of a gender because it's not the skin I'm living in, the shoes I'm walking in, it's not my real lived existence. And I don't mind, like, if you're one of our Patreon members, which if you're seeing this first, there you are, then you'll have seen Haven's Rest. That character is male, but very young. And so it doesn't feel masculine.
Well, considering that like a lot of comic books and like not comic books, a lot of animated shows and stuff get women to play young boys in anime and stuff.
Peter Pan. Yeah. Really,
because
Peter
it's
Pan
easier
effect.
to do that. So
yeah. So it's just kind of the way it's worked out. But I think so. I know we as a group have off camera sort of discussed like flirting and dating and relationships and stuff in games, because some of our players have had games in the past where that's been a thing. And so we talked about what if it's something that happens in our storyline and whatever. And it's just sort of interesting because I wouldn't call any of my characters ace, but just the way that the games went, right? Just the way that the stories unfolded, nobody's sexual preferences ever really were important to the storyline. One time we had a guy who played a character who was just like massively horny all the time and trying to pick up like all the women everywhere, no matter age, anything, right? And he wasn't with our group from like, he was like staying with friends, so he was only there for like 3 games, and that was honestly the only time in the early days. I don't think it was really until the game where I met my husband that I played a character where I had to think of am I attracted, is this character attracted to another character? It was the first time, and so that was like 2001. So 6 years of playing, tabletop role-playing games where sexual preference never came into play at all. It just was never part of the storyline. And I feel like I still typically play that way.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I am with most of my characters. Well, I mean, because one, it's hard for me to do that. But I will say, my first game that I played with Tulip, our characters were all on a train, and Tulip is blue. And in my DM's world, all tieflings are red. And so Tulip is like the only blue tiefling in the whole goddamn world. And so we were on a train, and I went to the like bar cart to get drinks for my whole party, and there was a red tiefling there, and he was just like, that's not normal. And I was like, who's to say you're not normal? And I literally, my character just forgot forgot to get drinks for everybody and just sat down with his other tiefling and talked to him the whole train ride. Forgot about all my friends. And just talked to this person.
Stuff like that. I love stuff like that, though. I was like, so we were, well, you kind of, honestly, where you jumped in, it sort of summed up what we were talking about.
Yeah, sorry about that, y'all.
I just realized that, like, I don't think I've explained anything about myself. So I am cis. I am straight. I am so straight it hurts. I break lots of hearts, and I'm so sorry. And everybody's like, not even a little, and I'm like, not even a little. I always like to point to, I have my best friend, my very, very best friend, who I actually refer to as my wife, and I'll come to that in a second, who everybody adores her. Like, she's a goddess on the planet. She's extremely talented. She's extremely beautiful. She's extremely smart. And I have known her for a very long time, and I have never once wanted to kiss her, jump her bones, anything. And I'm like, if she doesn't do it for me, nobody's gonna do it for me, right? But I would consider myself pan-romantic. I can have very deep romantic-like relationships with different people. But I don't have many. I'm a very picky person.
I mean, to give you an idea, like, so I consider myself gray romantic, which means that, so much like for the asexuality spectrum, it is a spectrum ranging from completely ace to demi to gray ace, that sort of thing. There's a similar one for romantic attraction as well. And so I consider myself gray romantic, and the way that it's easiest explained is that I don't understand love as a feeling. Like, everyone that I've ever heard from is just like, oh my gosh, I feel it, like I'm in love. And I'm like, no, oh God, no. And I keep finding very romantic people who love me, and I'm just like, I am trying very hard to explain to you that I love you, but it is a choice. But the reason that I bring this up, who I call my nest mate, who I live with, we have a very deep, what we call a queer platonic friendship relationship, because they are more than just a friend to me. They're more than just a best friend. They're my person. And also, like, we are not romantic in any way, shape, or form on purpose. It doesn't really relate to D&D, but I wanted to give just complete that idea of different kinds of relationships existing in the queer spectrum.
I want to I'll bring it back to D&D and say, like, all the things that we're talking about here, because you'll see that even though there's 3 of us here, right? 2 have they, them, 1 she, her, pronouns. We're all oldest children. We have some similarities and stuff, but the way, like, we define things, the way that things feel natural to us, the way that we feel right in the world is different. And one of the things that Yas wants to do is show that, not just in our player characters, but in our NPCs as well. That as Sarah referred to it last time, everybody's like a blob. I was thinking of it like wibbly wobbly, timey wimey, but not timey wimey. It's just that
wibbly wobbly gender winder.
It's a winder. This is what my grandmother would call a winder. Just, but everybody's bringing their unique blobbiness to the table. And even if it's not something that you are actively bringing to the table in a PC or whatever, because it is a way that you think, it's going to influence the way that you react to any world that's happening in your tabletop roleplay game. And that's the thing that we want to make clear, and we want to say is a good thing. Like, not everything has to be like the cookie cutter standard dungeon delve adventure, right? Our own world is hugely diverse and hugely interesting. And it takes everybody bringing their unique spin to the table to create something unique and beautiful. And that's what we try to do, is take all of these, all the ways that we think about the worlds, worlds. We now live in multiple worlds, apparently.
We exist in the multiverse.
The multiverse. I like a multiverse. That we're bringing all that to the table. So it's hard to completely disengage it from gaming, because we are gamers. Ergo, all those things about us do play a role in, no pun intended, in any game that we're playing. Even if it's all puns intended, let's be honest. Even if it's not ultra intentional, right? It's always there below the surface, as it were. I guess the last thing that we kind of wanted to talk about was the changes that we have seen from when we each first started playing. I know Annika doesn't have a huge storied history.
I have 2 years.
A whole 2 years.
I just want to say, like, even though Annika has had less time on this earth, like, I feel like you have more experience in playing than I do. So, like, that is not directly related to age.
Right. I got a tease.
Oh, that wasn't at you. That was
my
just
job. I signed a contract. But I think what we kind of wanted to talk about for this next segment was our experiences when we first started versus the experiences that we're having now, the trends that we're seeing in gaming, and where we want to see things. What's the 5-year plan, the 10-year plan? It's a very Capricorn thing of me to say. What's our future outlook?
Well, I was gonna say that, my experience is 2 years, but I've played video games for forever. But I will say that, like, something that shaped, like, for me anyways, because I was so young, I was playing mature games, like, young. They're like, oh, you gotta be 18? I'm like, nah. But one of the games that I thought was, like, great for me anyways was The Last of Us. Because the second main character was the same age that I was when I was playing that game. I was the same age as Ellie. And then, as they released Last of Us Part 2 this year, they chose to make Ellie queer. And I was like, I am still the same age as you, and I am also queer. Thank you, game. Ellie has such, like, and I have such an emotional connection to that character, which is why I hate the ending to the second game with a passion. But yes.
Right. I have to, so when I started video games, first of all, it was very difficult to tell if you were a gender because it was 8-bit and you were barely more than a square. But to be fair, like my choices of gender ergo were a spaceship and a circle that ate ghosts. So like early on it wasn't a thing, but I did used to do a lot of first person shooters, like Doom and Quake and that ilk. And there you're only a dude. Well, to be fair, you're only a gun. That's all you can see. But it was a big thing when games started to have actual female characters. So like Street Fighter was like a big deal, right? Because, oh my God, you could play a girl and it wasn't just a girl. She was like a friggin' badass, like one of the best people. Mortal Kombat also, right? Like not only are you getting a female on the screen, but she is majorly kicking ass. It's not like, oh, we put in a token girl and she's like whatever. But even then, the characters by and large were still marketed to male players, right?
Speaking of female characters in video games, one of the first video games I ever played, we had a PlayStation 2 when I was growing up, and one of the games we had was the Godzilla fighting game. It was like Smash Bros, but Godzilla characters. And the only character I ever played in that game was Mothra. Because Mothra was like the closest to like a female character for Godzilla characters anyways. I was
gonna say Mothra. Godzilla being a reptile, and I realize that we've covered this before.
But like
does lay eggs. I will point out Godzilla lays eggs, my friend.
Yeah, but I played Mothra all the time because you start out as Caterpillar Mothra, and then as you keep fighting, you could turn into Mothra. And so
you're just like a giant Butterfree. Get over yourself. That's fine.
Mothra was my favorite Godzilla character ever, so still is and always will be.
That reminds me, I remember like playing on the playground when I was in elementary school, and we were all like playing like Power Rangers, and we would claim different colors for ourselves, and I wanted to be the Red Ranger because the Red Ranger was the leader, but they made me be the Pink Ranger, and I really don't like that color. And I was like, I don't want to be pink. I don't want to be girly. I wanted to be the red. I wanted to be the red one because he was the leader.
Can I just say, before that, we had Voltron.
Yeah.
But same problem. So in my day we had Voltron, and it was literally the exact same problem.
I was the most creative kid on the playground and my friends, and I was also exposed to anime at the time, specifically just Inuyasha. And so, and like a few, like some of my friends in like those comics, and then that was just me playing by myself in the playground, but that's fine. But yeah.
I think, there is a thing about being, you end up being such an oddity as a girl or femme presenting person. So there is a movie that I love, which is Darkness Rising. And in the movie,
I'm very sorry. Did you say Dorkness Rising?
I did.
Okay, sometimes my audio processing in here doesn't quite work.
The gamers to Darkness Rising, and in it, this gaming group brings in their first female player, and she shows up at the gaming store, and all the guys in the store like stop what they're doing and they're just staring because they're so baffled, right? Because not only is she there, but she's there like by herself, like shopping for her own stuff, like, showing up for a game and stuff. And they're just like, what? And as funny as that scene is, it's one of those, it's funny because it's true. Like, that's what it was. Even after I moved to Austin, and I first went, so that was in 99, and I went to Dragon's Lair, and this was Dragon's Lair 4 iterations ago, so it was very small. I was always the only female in there, always. In those, like, and I'm sure others existed, but somehow it was never timed that there was another one in there.
I just never saw them.
I never saw them. Because I don't want to be like, I was the only girl gamer in all of Austin. Because I know it's not true. It's just somehow you never see each other. And it's a weird thing that you're this like oddity. You're always it still happens.
It definitely does.
In Siege, it happens all the time. Like when I used to play with my brother, we'd be on there, and as soon as I'd use voice chat, there'd be another girl on our team being like, girl, and I'm like, oh my god. And then we become friends on Ubisoft because we're like, yes, connect.
I was the only girl on an LPC mud that I played for the longest time, and then another girl showed up, and of course you don't know, it's a mud. For people who don't know what that is, it is a text-based video game. Because we didn't have graphics. Because we were poor in the past. That's why we couldn't afford graphics.
Somebody wants to play video games with me. Sorry.
And then when I found out,
and somebody just invited me to play a game.
Would you like to play a game?
Like, as we're talking, I just see the invite pop up, and I'm like, even when we're done, I'm not gonna play.
I'm gonna get in the hot tub because it's my last time to get in the hot tub during.
I am going to eat my pho because I need my soup.
I am.
That's fair.
Debating playing Dead by Daylight with other femme friends
And everybody, this is the, what did we call it? The Segtraincoaster.
We went off that.
Hold on.
Oh wait, there's a picture.
Oh, there is.
So when I found out that this other player was a girl, I got real excited because it was one other girl on the whole server.
But to get back on,
I will say it is loads better now. Like if I go to any gaming store, the likelihood that there's going to be females there is almost assured, where it was so rare before. So that's been a huge change.
So now we get back onto the coaster.
Yeah,
Sorry.
We're back on. We're going to get back on
the Segtraincoaster.
The Segtraincoaster.
The Segtraincoaster.
So
right.
Yeah, I did some practice stuff over here, but please note I am not an artist whatsoever.
Oh, by the way, my mom is watching the stream, so you need to make us a shirt.
The Segtraincoaster.
Segtraincoaster.
Segways in a train on
Get the Segtraincoaster back on track.
Yeah.
Back on
I just heard my mom kind of yell in the room.
Please do not turn that into any sort of graphic.
That's the art specifically that we want.
So my cousin called my mom on WhatsApp years ago for her homework. She wanted to ask us all about our jobs, because my family's in Switzerland. And so my cousin is taking English this year, and so she asked us all. And my mom, who's right here now,
hey guys,
she's like,
hello.
She's like, how do I figure out what to tell this kid in German? What do I do? So you just said graphic designer.
Yes.
So
that's good. Yeah, that's good. Good answer.
Enjoyed
Good answer.
It was a lot of fun.
We're still streaming. I know.
You should answer the questions on your message.
You sent no questions. You just commented.
You have to ask the question before I wrap up in 5 minutes. So I would like, starting with the things are, I mean, considerably better than when I started.
It's going way.
Like the fact that I can go get on Twitch and I can go look up gaming live streams, and many of them are female or femme. Some of the most popular ones even. So like that's huge. So like that part is like vastly changed. What's lagging behind is the like visual representations and the good storyline representations. And I mean, you see it in books and movies a bit, where there's female leads and those movies end up being wildly popular. And things where they gender swap, which are wildly popular.
Like Doctor Who.
Right.
If I may.
Who's your doctor? Yeah, go on.
So like one thing that was coming up when Sarah was talking about the Tasha's Magic Cauldron, is that what it is?
Tasha's Cauldron of
Tasha's Cauldron of Everything.
Yeah, Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. I am clearly not the person who keeps all the books.
I can say that. I can say that to them. Nerd.
Yes. And so one of the things that was coming up was that we think that one of the reasons that it didn't live up to the expectations that we had set for it was because there just isn't enough representation of what we're looking for in the creation room. Even just like getting a consultant or something like that, that doesn't exist. And so we're going to see ourselves more represented when people who know what they're writing about are allowed in the writers' rooms. Hire women, hire queer people, hire people of color. Like, it is so important
hire queer women of color.
Yes. Hire queer Black women, hire queer Indigenous women, please. Because there, we keep hearing, oh, well, all that's getting put out is the same stories over and over and over again. Just,
because the same people are writing them.
Yeah. There are some great stories that haven't been told, that have been are in these communities. And I, at least in my experience, every single time that I see them, I've enjoyed the heck out of myself. I mean, there have been a couple exceptions, but yeah, hire us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hire us. I feel like that was like a weird, like, play it backwards. It'll say the same thing.
I'm magical.
That's what makes me excited to like become a teacher, because that's what I want to do. I'm working to art teacher. One thing I'm excited for is becoming a teacher and having them not call me Mr. or Mrs. as Mix is a thing.
Mix. Yeah, I have several friends that go by Mix. One of them has gone by Mix by over a decade. So
I went to Whataburger today after work to get dinner for my family, and the amount of times they called me ma'am. I was like, I have a mullet. You serious?
I don't even like being called ma'am.
I'm like, can you not?
Like, the entire reason, and getting a little bit off topic. Now you're really getting into, if y'all didn't know about non-binary experience, you're gonna learn now. Like, the only reason why not the only reason, but the biggest reason why I've considered getting a binder, which is a undergarment that compresses the your skin and fat on your chest so that you have a more flat-chested look. And
they were very popular in the 1920s. That was my history fun fact. Go on.
One of the biggest reason that I've considered doing it is so I don't get mammed as much when I'm out and about, because I'm pretty sure that the only reason I do is because this is the only indication of my gender, right? or my assigned gender.
I've debated upon, because I only work like 5 hours a day at work now. So honestly, like, because I used to work longer shifts, and so honestly, I might, because my mom just recently bought me a second one. I have a normal one, and my mom got me the Pride one now. So now I'm like, maybe do it. People at work will finally get it. Because I'm friends with a lot of people at my work on Facebook. And, like, if you go to my profile on Facebook, the first thing that shows up is it says they, them on it. And I'm like, a lot of you people go on my profile, I know, because you have to accept my friend request. And you can see my profile.
This is like the biggest hint. I can see you.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
It's a thing.
So we've talked about, I think, yes, more representation in the creator room means more inclusion, more inclusivity, and just diverse storytelling. And we don't see that same, we don't have the same cookie cutter dungeon experience or NPC creations that we see in the books now. And as Sarah has mentioned before, look at indie role-playing games, because they're really leading the charge here on these concepts, on many of these concepts. So I think that's the thing. The 5-year plan for me would be to see Wizards of the Coast really get on board, like have that moment of understanding and take that solid step forward. Don't be so scared that you're going to lose a huge portion of your fan base, because the payoff will be bigger. And I think that's the thing that, especially when you are a large entity, you tend to get worried about, is that optics. But time and time again, it's shown, if you take that step and you buy in entirely to diversification and inclusion, that the payoff ends up being big for you. So I would love to see them really step up to the plate, especially because they're the biggest.
Yep.
In
Most
video
well-known.
games. Huh?
But, like, one of the most well-known.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so you got like, so I mean, sure.
Things too.
I would love to see Palladium. I would love to see Palladium do it. Like any of them. I would really. I'm interested to see Cyberpunk 2077 come out, because it seems like it's going to be very
come out? I mean,
neutral.
it was supposed to come out 2 months ago. So.
No, it's like pre-order.
No,
right
so
now,
it was,
right?
No, it's been pushed back a lot.
Because I was like, no, I would have it by now.
It
what?
was supposed to come out 2 months ago. But what happens to the reason it's taking so long is because now that all of the PlayStation 5 and stuff has come out, they're reformatting the game again to go, like, they're reporting, like, they're, well, because they want it to work well instead of they made it
like they knew the PlayStation 5 was coming.
Yes.
Right hand, left hand.
The PlayStation came earlier though than they expected.
I already have my one. Give me my game.
Right.
So,
I pre-ordered it, then refunded it because I realized I didn't want to play it because it's an open world game.
It is. That's what I like. That's what I like. Sandbox me. Throw me in a sandbox and roll me over.
I say I struggle, but I've been playing Skyrim recently, and I've been obsessed with Skyrim.
So I had this thing. I loved Elder Scrolls, right? Which one did I play? Morrowind. Yeah, Morrowind. And I got so into it, right? Like so into it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, I'm gonna get Oblivion. And I got Oblivion and my computer wouldn't run it.
Oh,
So my husband took it and ran it on his work computer, and I never got to play it. And I haven't gotten to play another Elder Scrolls game since Morrowind, you guys.
I mean,
if it makes you feel any better, like the last console that I actively like made sure I played was the GameCube. So don't even worry.
GameCubes are so cool, like those little discs.
I've only other than my son's consoles, right, which we bought for him. So that started with I'm not going to count the DS. Which started with the Wii. The only console I myself have ever owned that I played on was an Atari 2600.
I mean, I've played on a Wii, I've played on Wii U, I've played on the Switch and everything. But like the last one that I, actively got into being excited to play was the GameCube. I am not a video gamer.
And we can take this conversation into another different OOC.
We will. Hey, I don't know what it'll be, but it sounds like the beginning of something.
It'll happen.
Yeah.
Just because I love talking about video games.
And Annika and
I love watching
play Among
play
Us.
video games.
Well, I mean, we've played Among Us. We haven't played it together.
No, my mom has Among Us now too, so.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Fresh meat.
She's playing with random people, so she's been just doing public lobbies and stuff, and she got imposter, and as soon as she did, she was like, Annika, I need your help. So I walked over there because she was doing it with just the mouse, and I told her to change it to keyboard and mouse. So I was controlling where she moved, and she hovered over the sabotage, kill, and vent buttons for me. So I would go over and I'd be like, okay, kill this guy, and she'd kill him, and then we'd jump into the vent, and then we'd wait till the body would get reported, and then I'd tell her what to type and tell people, and she won. We won.
Oh, nice.
And it was a full lobby. It was a full lobby of 10 people. And we won. I was so surprised. It was so fun.
I love that you're getting your mom into all this.
We're gonna get I think my dad's computer.
It amuses me greatly.
So maybe we should all just play. Like our two families.
Let me ask this then as kind of a final thing. I know. I'm bringing the Segtraincoaster back on track, and the track is always like this, you guys.
Yeah. Of course.
What would be a we'll stick it to like this. What would be a D&D style module, right? That would get you really excited, that would incorporate sort of the inclusionary things that we've talked about today as far as gender identity, sexual expressions, et cetera, et cetera. What do you think it would look like? I bring the tough questions.
I mean, when you were talking about like just them changing stuff, one little thing that I think would be interesting is in the player's handbook, for every race, they have a list of male names and female names. They should add like gender neutral names as well.
Or just put names. Yeah, and then everybody can decide what it seems like to them.
They should edit the player's handbook and fix that, honestly.
Hire us.
So I say this all the time about Dead by Daylight when I'm playing with my friends. I have some of the most big brain tactics of that game that they should put in there. Honestly.
I would like to see like kind of what I did with the orcs with Jack and everything. Just a different races having different concepts of gender. Like I said it previously, orcs in Yas don't have a concept of what trans is because everyone grows up as I created it so that everyone grows up identifying as or being being raised as a woman, because it's a matriarchal society. But then when they come of age, they get to declare their gender, and that's just respected. And it doesn't matter, what their body looks like. It doesn't matter, how they dress. They declare their gender, and what ends up happening, like where they end up choosing to go in their life, can depend on what they declare their gender to be. But that means that in common, like if there was an idea of trans in common, Jack doesn't get it. Like, that's just going to be something that, like, if it ever comes up, Jack is just going to be like, I don't know what you mean. My body doesn't relate to the fact that I'm a girl. The fact that I'm a girl relates to the fact that I'm a girl.
Right. I was thinking, so there used to be, you could get basically smaller playbooks that were for your classes. So there was one entirely for fighters, one entirely for bards, et cetera, et cetera. And in it, they expanded a lot of ideas for, different paths you could take, different ways that you these characters to take it outside, because everybody basically gets 4 pages in the player handbook, and this was a way to kind of give everybody like your 50 pages of creative working with. And I honestly would love to see some stuff like that for races. And I would like it, honestly, I would love to see something where it's almost like an anthology, where you have, say, 10 or 12 pages dedicated to one version of this race, right? Where you could play it matrilineal, and this is how this group who wrote that part envisions everything. And then, other ones, because I think one of the things that happens is that people forget that, in essence, all of these quote unquote rule books, which are called usually handbooks, rule books, whatever, are guidelines. They're guidelines to help you build these games, these worlds, and help you work through them. Sarah's talked about how, she might pick a creature but change its stats because it works better for the game, right? But I think a lot of people see things and they become what we refer to as rules lawyers, right? And it doesn't just happen in the how far away, do you have to be for a spell effect, or does this column really count as 3/4 hidden, and that kind of stuff, right? It says that this race is lawful evil. It says that these are the way your stats work. It says this, and you can't deviate from that. And I think if D&D allowed more so, like we said with Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, where they kind of dip their toe into a little, but you take the step even further to show that no, you take this and you make it yours. You figure out what you want to overlay on it and how you see these things. And if we give you a bunch of ideas, then maybe you'll get the idea that you can make it what you want. Or you can pick and choose, like make this like a buffet of works, right? And you pick the parts you like. But that's kind of what I would like to see is, and I've said that in the beginning, because I'm a kind of person who's very creative, and I was always fighting of like, why can't I make this work? Like, to me, this would make a great character. But it becomes, a hamstrung idea because of the rules.
Yeah.
Why don't we just say it tells a good story and work with that? And yes, like my confessor, we heard the peanut gallery. And so, because I want to tell a good story.
Yeah.
And that's what I would like. And that's what we were saying is a lot of these independent role-playing games do that, where they prioritize story and they prioritize theater of the mind. And I would love to see more of that in the big names, and really lean into diversity and malleability. That's what I'd like to see.
That's like, so when for my first game of D Pathfinder, like my DM was like, okay, so there's like a bunch of ways we can do this. One of the ways I want you guys to go through it is pick 2 classes, and every time you level up both classes. So I picked Bard Sorcerer, and then it just came into all that, and I was like, I want to be blue. And
that gestalt.
And then he's like, okay, so if you're gonna be blue, you have to have a reason for it. So I like made up all this shit about him and to be blue, and part of it was because he's a sorcerer and his bloodline was possessed. So he's possessed by something that makes him blue. And it was really interesting to like just do all of that stuff for it to come up with that, which was really fun because like it wasn't that hard to do Pathfinder, but like with D&D it seems harder to be able to do that because they have so much that they're like stuck to do. Yeah. So
it's fun to do that in Fantasy Flight's Star Wars game because there's so much canon material that you can play with and the timeline and everything. One of my favorite things that ended up happening was I had a character, Ikati, also a woman, and I had a tendency, because I was just starting out in gaming, to come up with a reason why my character might do something foolish or ridiculous, because I, as a player, am inexperienced and don't necessarily know all the rules. So Ursa was a teenager and doesn't know what's going on and is still very young. So that was my idea for that. But I wanted to play someone older, so I made Ikati older, but I made it so that she had crash landed, and so she didn't have memory of before the crash landing. But then when I was like playing with, I had made her force sensitive, and I had made her like a specific race that like really enjoyed force sensitive, like really revered their force sensitive members. And so I realized that based on her age and based on her force sensitiveness and based on her race, she definitely was in the Jedi Temple when everything with Anakin was going down. And so, like, I had to figure out why she got there. And it turns, she ended up being like this wonderfully complex character, all because I had to I came up with this, who I wanted, and then I applied the canon on top of it and said, okay, what happened?
Having that huge flexibility, like world building flexibility, I think allows a lot of that expression and more of that thing, that to bring it back to the beginning, to bring the Segtraincoaster into the, whatever they call it, that original docking house,
the train station, into the station.
Somebody from Six Flags, tell me what that is called. But that when you're allowed to do that, that means that you can create characters that are fully expressive of yourself, but also you can explore things that about yourself you might be curious about that you haven't figured out. But it just gives you a lot more, Annika, don't kill me, sandbox, if you will.
This is where Annika just cuts you off and takes you out of the stream.
It's called a station.
It's called. That's it. You just call it a station.
That's what Coasterpedia just told me.
Six Flags, get better. There's got to be a better term. Okay, I'm disappointed. I wanted it to be more exciting.
So
I don't know. Coaster House. Bring it into the Coaster House. Yeah.
It says a station, sometimes called a loading platform, is a section of track on a roller coaster where riders enter and exit the cars.
So here we are on the loading platform, equally boring, but okay. Loading platform. That what it boils down to is the table becomes an exciting, wonderful place when you get to inhabit whatever kind of person you want to be able to inhabit. I'm going to put a fuzzy on that because some people are crappy and some characters are crappy, but that's a conversation for another time.
Okay, we have a lot of
And
weeks
it's-
to
Yeah, that's a really great topic that we can talk about in the future, which is, you know, this is what my
Problematic
character
characters.
would do, and then that ruining gameplay.
Yeah, we can talk about problematic character play as a future. But you getting to play somebody you're very comfortable with, somebody you're very interested in a world where that character can actually be that character. And to be clear, I'm not talking about designing your OP bullshit character. If that's your takeaway from this, you did not pay attention. But yeah, I think that's the bottom line is we just want to see ourselves and be ourselves and explore versions of ourselves in this, co-created space. And games just need to realize that that's a component many players are looking for, and to find ways to better include that in their game design. Full stop.
Full stop. End
Thanks for
story.
coming to our
Thank
TED Talk.
you, yeah, honestly, these are TED Talks at the end of the day.
With multiple people.
Yeah.
I guess some TED Talks have multiple people.
Kind of.
But
We'll get Yas there.
Yeah. So I hope everybody enjoyed this time on the OOC. I don't know when we'll be doing the next one. The next one will be on Twitch again. Not sure what day.
And don't forget the holidays are coming up, and so a lot, even with COVID, we are trying all to be safe. We are trying all to be healthy, both physically and mentally. And for some of us, those holidays, being alone is very difficult. And so we are coming up with creative ways to be together alone. And sometimes that means that it's difficult to get into yes time.
So yes, and then Annika and I will be rolling into fair season. So
yes.
The point is stay flexible, friends.
I was going to say, since I did mention in our last episode of Yas that we were going to be ending this arc in December, that's a lie. It won't be till January now.
Things change.
That was a lie.
That was again, as I said in the video too, I was like, this will all be irrelevant. It was all irrelevant, and just change the date.
As GLaDOS said, have I ever lied to you in this room? It's my favorite. I'm gonna be
okay. Goodbye, everyone.